Welcome back here to X's and Bros on the Michigan Sports Network. Danny Caitlin, Ryan Elke, Anthony Bellino, all joining you. Join us now, a real Michigan man, a Concordia alum, did his GA years under John Beilein at the University of Michigan, now an assistant coach at Ohio University for the Bobcats. A good buddy, Kyle Barlow. Find him on Twitter at Kyle Barlow for the coach. Coach Barlow, my friend, how are you, partner? How's life? How are things?
Great, man. Shout out Concordia. You know, at least once a month or once every couple months, we got to shout out to Concordia. You always do it, man, but shout out Concordia. Some people say Concordia. That's the wrong way to go, man. It's Concordia, proud alum, you know, Lutheran Missouri Synod, stand up.
Yeah, I don't even know what that last part that you said was, but
that's all right.
It sounded good to me. All right. By the way, one of my buddies is actually, I think he's the all-time leading rusher at Concordia.
Yeah. No, very good football program. Football didn't exist when I was there. But since then, I think my first year working there, when I was in admissions, we started recruiting for football. And in admissions, everybody recruits for football. And then in like 3 to 4 years, they were already in the national tournament. And they were, I think, 1 or 2 games away from a national championship. So, yeah, man, shout out Concordia. Leading rusher, your buddy, my alma mater. That's great, man.
Yeah, life is
on the banks of the Huron River.
Oh, I like that. There's another school that's a little bit north and a little bit west that has a banks on some rivers fight songs as well. I got to ask you this, man, because you're
what river is red, by the way? I'm sorry. There's no red rivers. Have you ever seen a red river? I've never seen a red river. But anyways, I digress. You digress.
Well, the Red River rivalry. We have the parting of the Red Sea. We have
biblical.
Yeah, biblical and very difficult to do as well. Very challenging. I got to be a high IQ guy to be able to pull something like that off. But because you're a real Michigander and a big diehard Lions fan, I have to ask you, after Calvin Ridley, you'd think everybody would be smart enough, but, you know, a couple guys, CJ Moore and Quintez Cephas, they are now gone because they bet on an NFL game. It turns out that Jameson Williams was betting on college football, but did so from the facility after the NFL investigation. Here's my question. Should these leagues, along with the NCAA and the 4 major sports, should they just have a blanket rule that you cannot gamble on sports? It doesn't matter if it's your own sport or any other sport until you are retired or out of the league?
First of all, you said Jameson, and all I can think about is a spot at the Blarney where there's 3 proud name tags.
Let's go! Wall of Fame, baby! Wall of Fame! We're up there, Eddie B! I just saw him. He gave me a T-shirt. I wore it on the show yesterday. It was great.
You went a little Dick Vitale on me. I love it. Eddie B saw him on the show. Did a T-shirt. It was great. But you know what? At the end of the day, there is a serious problem. And not a problem. There is a serious issue when it comes to professional sports, college sports, and gambling because there is a lot of promotion with it. You know, in 1991, I believe it was, you know, Paul Tagliabue went to Congress, the commissioner of the NFL then, and he said, don't legalize gambling for the sake of our kids. And this was like the whole pitch he made to Congress. And if you look at it, like, I get it. Like, you know, they don't want tampering within their sport. It's a slippery slope and all that. But now this slippery slope has been unleashed, and we do realize it is a slippery slope. So you're not allowed to true or false, Bellino? Here's a question for you. True or false answer. You're not allowed to bet on a college football game if you're an NFL player in an NFL facility. True or false?
That is true. You cannot bet on anything inside an NFL facility, which includes the actual physical stadium itself, any practice facility, or any team-operated entity, which would be buses, team hotels, things of that nature.
Okay. True or false? In 2020 and 2021, the collective bargaining agreement between the owners and the players approved sports books in the arenas or stadiums of NFL sites. True or false?
True or false? Also, DraftKings, proud partner of X's and Bros in the Michigan Sports Network. DraftKings. Sign up using the promo code HUGE.
True. And what I said was true too. So where is the line that is drawn? And I was shocked by this news with Jameson Williams, and I wasn't shocked for the fact that he was betting on sports. I was shocked that he could do it legally. The only way he messed up was he did it on the grounds. I was shocked by that. I just assumed like and if you're faculty or you're a coach or your staff in the NFL, you can't bet on any sports. Like Dan Campbell and his staff can't bet on any sports legally. In the NCAA, I'm bound by those same rules. I can't bet on sports legally or illegally, obviously. But I was shocked that players, and this is uniform across every major sports league, whether it's soccer, baseball, football, basketball, or hockey, they can bet on sports as long as it's not their own. Did you know that before that? Because I didn't.
I was aware that you could bet because Calvin Ridley, when his case came out, it was all about the fact that he bet on the NFL and not something else. And so that
Right.
was like, okay,
Right.
this still doesn't make a whole lot of sense because I think what we're doing is if you have one blanket rule, you are doing just that. Like you are basically protecting the players from themselves, which is something that I've talked a lot about with on this very program about name, image, and likeness and pay for play and, handing over, a dump truck full of cash to a young person that, has a higher likelihood of coming from maybe a low income environment to where maybe there needs to be some sort of like trust that is set up for them. I know it's diverging on a different topic, but at the same time, I think the same rules apply. Like at some point, somebody's got to be the responsible adult in the room and say, we got to protect people from themselves.
Yeah, no doubt. And the whole time where it's like, okay, don't bet on sports. Betting on sports is bad. That's how we grew up.
Mm-hmm.
That's how my generation, your generation grew up. Like, that's the worst thing you could possibly do. You're a monster if you bet on sports. And now it's like, well, you can bet on sports. Just don't bet on your own sport. And definitely don't do it on company property. Where it's like, what? Like, what are we talking about now? And now, let me preface this too. What Jameson Williams did was inexcusable, and it hurts the franchise. It hurts the Detroit Lions because for the first time that I can remember in a long time, we were heading towards legitimacy. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers. He's terrified of playing the Lions. He said, "Get me out of this division. Get me out of here."
He sees Kirby Joseph in his nightmares.
Oh no! Oh, for sure. And let's throw Cephas in there, but he's not available anymore. But for the first time in a long time, the Lions were trending towards legitimacy because they have a top pick. They have a really good team returning, probably the favorite now in the NFC North. And now something like this happens to your former first round pick. And I don't know, man. I think it sets us back just a little bit. Don't you agree?
I think that it does. And I think one of the interesting things in something I talked about yesterday on the show was that, this is really the first real test for Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell in this regime of being able to handle something off the field and with a very high profile player. And I think that how this goes down, I think it matters. I really do. How this whole thing is going to end up being and how Jameson responds to this as well, because the one thing that really hurts is the fact that he's going to miss 6 games. So that's 6 game checks. Plus it hurts the guarantees for his future contracts, and there's less of an incurred cost if the Lions were to part ways with him early. All of this needs to be very, very much explained to these young fellas as they try to figure out exactly, navigating the waters and what that really means when it comes to sports gambling. So for me, it is very educational for this entire group here, not just the player, but also the coaching staff, because they have to now figure out, hey, how are we going to handle this? And how is this going to look on the outside with whatever we choose to do?
Well, 2 things with that, and I'm glad you brought it up. Number one is you would be shocked. I don't know if you would be shocked, but you are crazy to think that this is an isolated instance in the NFL, in the Major League Baseball, in college, even in hockey, in basketball, in the NBA, but even in college, like, you are off your rocker if you don't think most of these athletes and even some of these coaches are betting on sports. And it's crazy to think about that. Some people think it is, but I'm telling you, you're crazy to think. If you don't think this is if you think this is an isolated instance, then you're in for a rude awakening in the coming years. And I think the difference is all they did, they got caught, and that's the only thing. But I'll kick this to you too. Like, I think it's relevant even to this week with the Lions, because you're looking at a guy in Jalen Carter who might, and now we're doing, like, I'm a basketball coach, I'm a college basketball coach, but now we're talking mock drafts. But if you're the Lions and Jalen Carter slips to you, what is the main thing the Lions have been preaching under Dan Campbell and Brad
Culture.
Holmes? Culture, character, right? Like, we're taking guys who want to work. It's the underwear Olympics. We're not interested. We want to put, we're Malcolm Rodriguez. We want these guys. Yeah, like Aiden Hutchinson. He's not a blue chip athlete, but he works hard. He's a great character. Culture, culture, culture. So now if you're the Lions, and let's say you are Mr. Culture, but a phenom drops you supposedly in Jalen Carter a week ago, do you consider taking him as opposed to this week where you're like, not so much? Like, do you think that's in the back of their minds?
I think I think when it comes down to the highly touted defensive lineman there from Georgia, I think that's in itself, because you have multiple red flags here. You have the erasing event, which he was charged with a misdemeanor and can't be charged again. And then you have
that he drove away from where people died. He's like, "Oh, I didn't know that. It's crazy."
Yep. That is the guy. And then you have the fact that he showed up to his pro days and he was overweight. And you are looking at, okay, so you're out of shape. You've gained 9 pounds and you're not finishing the drills because why again? Like, what exactly are we doing here? And I think that's what really, all of those red flags combined, I think that takes Jalen Carter off the draft board for the Lions. I honestly do, because I think, and with the Jameson Williams, does that play a role in it? It very well might, because if everything's Loctite right now, you might think, okay, I think we have enough coachable players with a good enough culture. That are, high character. I'm dropping all the C's right now. I'm trying to get creative. But I think that we have
the buzzwords.
Love buzzwords. I think we have enough of that to be able to withstand one guy, and that's not going to tip the apple cart. But now
the one guy would conform to your culture, but we don't want to create. Look at those 2 C words.
Ooh.
We don't want to create a culture with guys like this, but he can conform to our already established one. Oh wait, your culture is dudes betting on NFL or on college football games in the facility.
Yeah. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think it's a big issue for the Lions for sure, and it's a big issue revolving all sports. No matter what sport you're a fan of, and like you said, it's not an isolated incident. It is happening. Everybody's got accounts. They're all doing it, and to me, there's got to be some sort of oversight here where we step in. I also have another crazy idea, because we had the Alabama players that were pulled over now in the basketball team, guns, drugs, right? I mean, if you can't learn from what's already happened there, maybe it'll be wrong place, wrong time again, depending on how good they are, because we know that we know character doesn't matter. I'm saying that, not you. Don't worry about that. That's my responsibility, not yours. No comment from a guy who's coaching. But my theory is, if you take a gun charge in college, you should lose a year of eligibility, suspended for 1 year. And if you were going to jump to, let's say you were draft eligible, you would no longer be eligible to play in the professional league for 1 year. And this would come with oversight from all of the 4 major sports leagues, plus the NCAA, because something has got to nip this in the bud. Like, I know there's a lot of bad apples and we can make a lot of excuses, but at the end of the day, character's got to matter. And some of this stuff is more serious than others. And if you think it's one college game you bet on, that we know about.
The problem is now you're getting into national political agendas, and you may not think it's a political agenda, and some people may not, but at the end of the day, it is when you're talking about gun control versus states, and that's where the NCAA has lost a lot of power. And we can look at most recently NIL. Like, it's a national policy, but it's a state-by-state jurisdiction, right? And in a lot of ways. So that's where you get into the messiness of that situation. And, whether I agree or disagree doesn't matter, because there's no power to make it happen if you're the NCAA, because you're a national institution, but you have a body of states and conferences and individual public and private schools who make up your membership. Yeah, no doubt. And I know you've adjudicated this to death today and yesterday, and I know it's a big topic because the Lions are king, and this is a football state, and I think that whatever's said about it is going to be said, but my piece is, if you think this is an isolated incident, you're crazy. On the professional and the collegiate level, I think you're crazy.
He is the coach, Kyle Barlow. Find him on Twitter at Kyle Barlow4. I know that he had an awesome question he was going to ask me about the NBA playoffs. We didn't even get to it because we just had, there's just so much stuff going on. How are we supposed to be able to control all of this? It's just madness, absolute madness. But, man, we always appreciate you being a part of the show and hanging out with us.
Draymond or Brooks?